Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for all of you on the webinar for taking time out of your schedule to participate in this presentation. So, as you just heard, I've been at the Census Bureau for a long time, 29 years in September. It's scary sometimes to think it's been that long. Even after all that time, I'm amazed by the volume and the diversity of the data that we publish at the Census Bureau. From amazingly detailed demographic, socioeconomic, and housing characteristics that we publish in the in the decennial census and in our American Community Survey, to the business data, the monthly, quarterly, and annual business data. Yes, the Census Bureau does more than simply count the U.S. population every 10 years. If I got $1 for every time I heard someone say, "What do you do the other 9?" I would have retired by now. So yes, we do a series of demographic and economic surveys, actually 42 different economic censuses and surveys at Census. We have an amazing wealth of data. Even today, when I just got reorged, I discovered a new data set, a new program that we conduct at Census that I had no idea that we actually did. I used to be a geology major originally at Syracuse. I got a dual major in geology and economics. The Census Bureau actually coordinates what they call the Kimberley process. I don't know if anybody has heard of the Kimberley process, but this is the process that actually governs the movement of what we typically call conflict diamonds in the world. Companies have to become certified to be able to distribute diamonds. The Census Bureau actually coordinates that program for the federal government, U.S. federal government. Who would have thunk? So we have this amazing wealth of data. And the challenge for the Census Bureau has never been how we collect and how we analyze and how we disseminate our data, but how we actually get it to our users. Today's workshop is all about making key data user-friendly. And one of the main concepts here that we have to sort of think about is, what does it mean to be key data? What is considered key data varies widely from the type of user you're talking about. We typically think of Census Bureau users in 3 sort of categories. We think of sort of the entry-level user. We think of the mid-level user, and we think of sort of what we kind of temporarily called the power user. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of presentations about Census Bureau data, and I've heard a lot of analogies about the Census Bureau. The one you see on the slide is the one that I sort of love the most. It's the thought of the Census Bureau sort of being a forest, and all of the data we publish being the leaves on the branches in the trees in this forest. The entry-level user is interested in a single leaf on a single branch on a single tree in this forest. My older daughter did a project in elementary school or middle school about the economy of Calvert County, Maryland. She needed to know the total population of Calvert County, how many businesses were in Calvert County, and whether that number was increasing or decreasing. She's an entry-level user. She wants a single leaf or maybe 2 leaves on the trees. How we tailor our data to get our data to that entry-level user is really important. And in the workshop today, we're going to go through 5 data tools. No, I promise you, we're not going to actually go live on all 5 of them. I'm only going to demo 1 of them. The first 4, we're just going to sort of talk about. And what I would really encourage you all to do is, after the webinar and you have time, go back to your office and play with some of these data tools. They really are amazing. At the opposite extreme, you have the power user. You have the user that wants every single leaf on every single branch of every single tree in that entire forest. They are the economic development officials from a large state. They want to download all of the demographic and economic data we have for their state so they can understand the composition of the demographics, the population, and the businesses in their area. They are our big federal data users. The Bureau of Economic Analysis is one of our largest users of Census Bureau economic data. They want all of our data. To be a power user, though, you sort of have to have 3 attributes. You have to know about the Census Bureau. You have to understand our programs. You have to understand statistics, and you have to have time. And some of our data tools do require you to be all 3. We'll talk about sort of one of those. In between those two users is sort of a really challenging group for us at Census. That mid-level user that doesn't want every single leaf on every tree, but doesn't just want one statistic either. They want something in between. And the tool we're going to actually be walking through today, Census Business Builder, was primarily designed for sort of this entry to mid-level type user. The user that has, in many respects, the same needs as a power user, but has more sort of the characteristics, the knowledge of an entry-level user. They don't know about our programs. They probably think that all Census does is count the population every 10 years. They don't understand statistics, and quite frankly, they don't want to. They just need some basic data to answer their question, and they have no time to deal with us. They want us to spoon-feed this data to them in a way that makes it easier for them to manipulate it. So we're going to walk through quickly 4 tools. The first one we're going to talk about is American Fact Finder. I imagine that many of you here in the room and also on the webinar have used American Fact Finder quite a bit. This is an amazingly powerful resource. It includes the data from the largest programs that we conduct at the Census Bureau, the decennial census, the American Community Survey, our biggest demographic survey that we conduct at the Census Bureau. Includes data from the economic census we do every 5 years of businesses, and a number of our annual programs as well. American Fact Finder, as powerful as it is really sort of designed for that more power type user. That user that can go in and use these amazingly powerful features of AFF to go in and select the actual statistics that they need for their particular use. Okay? Power user type use. We also have something called the Economic Indicators Briefing Room, and yes, the Census Bureau actually has a mobile app. It's called America's Economy. These 2 resources, the Indicator Briefing Room and America's Economy, are both designed to present the statistics that the Census Bureau publishes in our Economic Indicator series. Many people don't realize that the Census Bureau actually does 14 of the 18 leading economic indicator surveys. Every month, on the second Tuesday of every month at 8:30 a.m., we release the monthly retail sales number. Just yesterday, we released the January trade data that actually showed a 3-year high in terms of total exports and total imports into and out of the United States. The briefing room is the place where these sort of power users go to get those really, really timely economic indicator surveys. So if you are one of those data nerds who absolutely needs to know exactly what the retail sales were for last month at the very moment that the data are released, the Indicators Briefing Room and the America's Economy mobile app are the tools that you would go to actually access that timely data. These are monthly economic indicators and some quarterlies as well. We also have a tool called Quick Facts, and as the name sort of implies, this tool is more designed for that more entry-level user. The user that just needs a couple of facts about their area of interest. They don't want to learn about all of our programs. They don't want to be presented with 1,000 options. Just let me choose a geography and present to me some key selected statistics. In the screenshot that you see here on the slide, we're looking at a profile of Helena, Montana. I had to think about which geography we used. This tool allows you to choose a geography and then presents selected demographic data and business data about the geography that you selected. We've recently expanded the functionality of this tool to now allow you to select multiple geographies. So I could select Helena, Montana, and Lewis and Clark County, and the state of Montana, and the United States total to kind of get a composition of how does Helena make up, how much of Helena's economy is in part of Lewis and Clark County. What share does it make up of the state of Montana? The tool allows you to do that, and we've also recently added some new charting and mapping features to Quick Facts. But again, this tool is really sort of designed for that entry-level user who just needs a couple of basic statistics about their geography. Geography is the key principle here. We also have a tool called My Congressional District, or MyCD. Like Quick Facts, geography is the primary dimension of MyCD. As you can imagine, MyCD's geography are congressional districts. This tool is designed specifically for congressional staffers and allows them to get demographic and a couple of selected business statistics about their congressional district. Again, a very tailored tool, sort of an entry-level user type of a tool, and one design that presents those selected statistics. So if you're getting calls from people saying, I want to understand how the population of my congressional district is changing, what's the makeup of it in terms of race, ethnicity, and gender, how many businesses are there, how many of them are manufacturers, how many of them are retailers, how many of them are service industry businesses, my congressional district actually includes data from those programs. The last tool I want to talk about before we start to talk about Census Business Builder is the Industry Statistics Portal and the corresponding industry snapshots. ISP, the ISP, is sort of designed for that mid-level user, the user that comes to the Census Bureau and says, I'm interested in data for a single industry. And I want to understand, I want to get all of the data that the Census Bureau has for my industry. For example, I might be interested in automobile manufacturing, and I would want to go in and say, what are all the programs that the Census Bureau has that publish data on automobile manufacturing? They could go through all 42 of our surveys one at a time, click on each of them and discover that one has it, that one doesn't, that one has it, that one doesn't, or they could go to the ISP, and the application not only provides a list of the programs that provide data for that specific industry, but most importantly, it also provides deep links right into American Fact Finder specifically for that industry. It sort of bypasses the menu structure in AFF and lets the user go straight to the data for that particular industry. This is sort of one-stop shopping for someone who's interested in statistics about a single type of business. Industries do change over time, so the application also includes some definitions and comparability information. Often we get questions from people saying, I'm studying an industry and I want to be able to compare that industry over the last 15 or 20 years. Can I make a comparison of that industry over time? Is the industry comparable? That type of comparability information is available in the Industry Statistics Portal. And finally, the ISP includes direct links right to our industry snapshots. These are one sheet of paper, two-sided, very, very simple, easy-to-use profiles of data for a specific industry. So if you have someone who says, I just need something to be able to pass out at a conference that shows information about automobile manufacturers in Alabama, you can actually generate one of these industry snapshots for them, and now they have this document available that way. Okay? Data are shown at the national, state, and county levels in the snapshots. Okay, so those are the first four tools I wanted to talk about. I now want to talk a little bit about Census Business Builder, because that's really sort of what the main point of this workshop is about. About 2 years ago, we started thinking about types of customers that we have typically not done as great a job of getting our data to. Entrepreneurs, small business owners who are interested in starting a business, maybe have an existing business and want to grow that business, are thinking about relocating to a different location, are thinking about opening a second location for their business, or maybe simply business people that want to be able to compare their business to other businesses like them to see if there's something that they're not sort of getting, something that they're missing about their type of business. I'm running a daycare center and I lose employees like crazy. People are quitting my job and leaving. Why? Well, maybe using this tool, you could go ahead and find out that you're paying your employees half of what the going rate is for daycare employees in your particular county. Okay? We realize that this type of user, these small business users, are currently not supported as well as we could at the Census Bureau. For them to go through and find the data that they need on daycare centers in Crofton, Maryland, demographic and business data would be very challenging. So we decided to go ahead and do something about it and actually create a tool specifically for small business users. When we built this tool, we did it following a couple of guiding principles. The first one sort of should be a no-brainer to everybody here. It's got to be easy to use. And as we go through the demo of Census Business Builder, you'll actually see some of the things that we did to hide some of the jargon, to use plain language, to use features that are intuitive to users who don't know anything about the Census Bureau, who don't understand statistics, and really, quite frankly, don't want to. They just want the data that they need for their business plan, for the loan application, et cetera. Census Business Builder was also built using an agile development cycle, which typically means that we have lots of sprints inside our building where we are constantly working on the application. What we've done with CBB is we've actually been presenting those sprints to our customers as we're developing them. We've been updating Census Business Builder every 3 to 5 months, starting in September of 2015. We just had an update on February 1st. When you put a tool out for people to use, and you ask them to provide feedback, you have to listen to their feedback. We think we know what users want to do with our data, and a lot of our tools are designed based upon what we think we want them to do with the data. But if you ask them what they actually are doing with the data, you often discover things that you didn't expect. You didn't know that they wanted to do something special with our data. And we've been very, very customer focused with this tool in terms of how we built it. Census Business Builder also was designed from the very beginning to actually include data not only from the Census Bureau, but from other sources. Currently, there's one source of data from a third-party source. We have consumer expenditures data that we actually purchased from Esri. Esri will actually sell the data to you. We have it in this tool completely for free, which is the last point on the slide. There are other data providers, other tool providers that have things that have applications, have websites that do things that are similar to Census Business Builder. None of them do exactly what it does, and none of them are free. We are the only resource for these business people that's actually free. This fourth guiding principle is sort of the most important one to me. We've leveraged a lot of technologies and a lot of investments we have at the Census Bureau in building this tool. I just alluded to the fact that Esri is the contractor. The big mapping and GIS company is actually our developer of Census Business Builder. You will notice their logo in the bottom right-hand corner of the map when we get there. Census has a large investment with Esri, and we've really leveraged and celebrated, if you will, that investment in taking advantage of the knowledge that they have about mapping applications. When we go into Census Business Builder, you will notice that the map looks quite different than other nerdy Census Bureau maps. That was done on purpose because we leveraged the knowledge that they have of what users think of as intuitive, easy-to-use types of maps. We also have been leveraging some other technologies. Esri actually recommended that we host this application on the cloud. This is the first Census Bureau application that's actually hosted on the cloud. We're on Amazon Web Services. We did it for one reason, and that was to meet performance expectations of our users. When you see the application and how quickly the map builds, that is happening partially because we are actually hosting this application on the cloud. The other technology that we've leveraged is the Census Bureau has something called an API, an application programming interface. It's basically a massive database that includes data from a number of our programs. Currently, there's 187 data sets in our API. Census Business Builder consumes all of the data using our own API. And APIs are fabulous because they allow you to be able to grab the data you need in your tool at the exact moment that you need it. It does not require the user to have to download and store that data themselves. So grabbing the data on the fly makes this application really fast, and it also makes it very, very easy for us to update. In December, when we released the new 2015 American Community Survey data, 5 minutes after the data went live, it was available in Census Business Builder. That happened because none of the data are actually sitting resident in Census Business Builder. Okay? Technology. We're trying to make these applications very user-friendly by leveraging that technology. To get to Census Business Builder website, you go to census.gov, and we're actually going to go there in a second, and you go to Census Business Builder, and that will bring you to the CBB homepage, the page you see here. On this page, we have a couple of features. The first of them is we have a little promotional video. Why did we do this? It's a nice video that I show sometimes when I'm doing demonstrations of CBB. It's about 2 minutes long, kind of talks about what the needs are of small business owners and why we created this tool. We also have some tutorial videos. After I do the demo today and you forget how did Andy use that filter feature, you can go in and watch the tutorial video to remember about that. They're about 1.5 minutes long, nice and short and sweet. No one has any patience to sit through a 5-minute video. We also have other tutorial and promotional type materials, flyers, fact sheets, the normal FAQs, things like that. You'll see that those are on the page. And finally, we actually have the links to Census Business Builder as well. You'll notice on this side that there's actually 2 editions of Census Business Builder. I'm going to try to stick with the Small Business Edition first. If we have time, I'll also demonstrate the 2nd edition, which is the Regional Analyst Edition. The Small Business Edition is the edition that we've been sort of talking about so far. This one that was designed primarily for entrepreneurs and small business owners to help them gather the demographic and business data that they need. Okay? As the tool has matured, it sort of has grown up where it now is not just for small businesses, but for all types of businesses. And you'll see some of the new features we've just recently added into the Small Business Edition. About 9 months after we released the Small Business Edition, we had a request from a Chamber of Commerce Executives Association to create a 2nd edition of Census Business Builder. The key difference between the Regional Analyst Edition and the Small Business Edition is, first, the Regional Analyst Edition sort of takes more of a 30,000-foot view of the economy of an area. It allows you to look at all of the type of businesses in an area as opposed to just one type of business. So, for example, if you want to create a regional profile of Southern Maryland, and you want to look at manufacturing and retail and wholesale and all of the other sectors of the economy that have businesses in that Southern Maryland area, the Small Business Edition would let you look at one industry at a time. This tool lets you look at all of the sectors at one time, and you'll see that in just a moment. The second major difference, and this really is the biggest difference between the Regional Analyst Edition and the Small Business Edition, is the Regional Analyst Edition lets you build your own geography. Okay? The Census Bureau publishes detailed data at the state, county, city, zip code, and tract levels. But we don't allow you, with very few exceptions, the ability to aggregate those geographies to create your own made-up geography. Okay? For example, I just threw out the example of Southern Maryland. I don't know if any of you here in the room live in Southern Maryland, but if you did, you probably recognize that as the group of 3 counties in the southern portion of Maryland. Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's counties are what we sort of colloquially think in Maryland as Southern Maryland. The Census Bureau doesn't actually publish any data for Southern Maryland. We have the data for those 3 counties, but there's no or very few tools that allow you to aggregate the data for those 3 counties into a total for that region. That's what the Regional Analyst Edition allows you to do. You can build your region by either counties or cities. This is especially useful for chambers of commerce and other regional economic development authorities whose boundaries, whose service areas cover more than just simply one county or one state or one city. For example, we have some colleagues that I've been working with at the North Jersey Transportation Planning Administration, NJTPA. They represent 14 counties in northern New Jersey, and they are responsible for distributing the transportation funding in that 14-county area. For them, understanding the composition of the demographics and the businesses in that 14-county area is really critical. They want to spend those transportation monies in places where it makes sense. Where do people live? Where do they work? Where should I be spending those monies? This tool allows them to build a profile of that 14-county area and then dive into the details. Look at the individual cities and the zip codes and the tracts within that 14-county area. Look at the composition of businesses within that 14-county area. Are they clustered in certain counties? Are we getting a lot of commuting between one county and another? That's what you can do in the Regional Analyst Edition. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go live here. Let me get out to our live browser so we can actually go in and start to play a little bit with Census Business Builder. So again, to get to Census Business Builder from the Census Bureau's homepage. Okay. Okay. This is why there always has to be someone who knows how the technology, and that's not me. So from the Census Bureau's homepage, we would go to Data, and then Data Tools and Apps, and then Census Business Builder. And that would then bring us to that page that we were just looking at just a second ago on my screenshot. I'll also let you know that you could actually just simply type in Census Business Builder over here into the search box, or you can just simply Google Census Business Builder and it'll bring you right here as well. Okay, in fact, we have a lot of users of this application that are coming here directly via deep links right from their own websites. So we're going to go ahead first and look at the Small Business Edition. So by clicking on the Small Business Edition link, the application then loads. And let me zoom out a little tiny bit so you can see a little bit more of the application. So Census Business Builder, the way you use this application is in basically 4 simple steps. The first step is we choose the the industry that we're interested in researching, okay? When the tool first went live, we had 36 different types of businesses that were sort of picked by us and by our users as being industries that they were most interested in. For example, if I was interested in opening a restaurant, I might want to go ahead to food services, and I could choose restaurants, and that would be a very easy way to do it. Currently, the Small Business Edition supports 54 of what we sort of count as the most popular types of businesses. In September, though, we added this NAICS search box down here at the bottom, this industry search. We were getting a lot of requests from users saying, Andy, my industry that I care about is not in your 54. Can you please add it? We realized that at a certain point in time, continually adding buttons was going to get old. There's about 1,400 NAICS codes. That's a lot of buttons. So we said, forget about it. From that point on, we're going to add an industry search. So if I was interested in opening a jewelry manufacturing business, I could type in jewelry in the search box, and the application would bring back a list of all the industries related to jewelry. It would allow me to choose that industry. You would never know from my last name, but my family is actually Greek. I've been in Census for a long time, so I'm thinking about leaving, retiring, and I've always wanted to open a Greek restaurant. So we're going to pretend like we're going to open a Greek restaurant. Please go back to your office and play. If you're thinking about quitting your job and you want to open a boat building business or something else like that, which I actually thought about doing that one as well, you can go ahead and do that. So we're going to open a restaurant. So I'm going to choose food services. And here's my choice for restaurants. Now you'll notice just to the right of here, we have this button that says fast food. Okay? I mentioned earlier that we have been trying as much as possible to use plain language in this application. The official NAICS title for that industry, the official industry title, is limited service eating places. The word food is not even in the title of the industry. No one knows what that means. So we have tried to use plain language through synonyms and things like that. So here's where we would choose to open a fast food restaurant. We're going to open a regular restaurant. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And when I do that, I get a link to read the definition of what it means to be a restaurant. This is also a way to be able to go to more data about restaurants than what's in Census Business Builder. And right away, we can see that there's 238,000, almost 239,000 restaurants in the United States. We included this number of businesses because when we added the NAICS search, it is now possible to search for an industry where there are so few businesses in the United States that you very likely would come to a map where nothing is displayed. Think about aircraft manufacturers. Okay? If you were searching for data on aircraft manufacturing and you weren't looking for Tacoma, Washington, you were in rural Iowa, let's say, you would not find any data for aircraft manufacturers. I don't think there's any in Iowa. I probably shouldn't have said that. So we first choose our industry. The second step is we choose the geography that we want to research. There's 2 ways of choosing our geography. We can either search for it, which is the way that I think most users do. You can type in the name of a state, a county, a city, or a zip code, and it'll go ahead and zoom you to that area. It also has this My Location button. In September of last year, Census Business Builder was made mobile optimized. This now will work on your mobile device, whether that's an iPhone or an Android device or your tablet or your iPad, it now works that way. To be quite frank, I thought the ability to have this My Location button was sort of silly. Why would someone want to research a business based upon where their computer is currently sitting? It's based upon the IP address of your computer. My colleagues who I work with on this project told me, Andy, you don't know everything. There are these things called mobile devices. If I was driving around town trying to find a place to open my restaurant, I could find an available storefront, I could pull over, park my car, yes, please park your car, And then I could go ahead and bring up CBB and click on the My Location button, and it zooms you right to where your car is parked. Okay? It goes right to the state, to the county, to the city, to the zip code, and to the census tract where your geography is located. I'm interested in opening my Greek restaurant in Fairfax County. I know there are other Greek restaurants there, but mine's going to be so much better. So we're going to type in Fair. And the application now brings me back a list of all the geographies that contain the letters F-A-I-R. If I kept typing, I finally come down to Fairfax, okay? The application allows you to find counties, cities, zip codes, and states, of course. And one thing you'll notice is we've sort of mashed together the 5 different flavors of cities and towns that the Census Bureau recognizes all into one flavor. Users don't really, frankly, care whether or not their city is an incorporated city or a CDP, census designated place. Crofton, Maryland, where I live, is a CDP. I don't care. It doesn't matter. If I want to open a restaurant in Crofton, I just want to open a restaurant in Crofton. So we're going to choose Fairfax County. And once we choose our geography, we now have 2 buttons now light up. So we've done our first 2 steps. I chose our industry and we chose our geography. The third step is actually going to the map where you can then browse the data for restaurants in Fairfax County to help me make that decision. Is opening a restaurant in Fairfax County a good idea? Yes or no? We also have a link to the report, which is really the 4th step. This is where after you've done your research, you can now generate a report that actually includes all of the data for the demographic and economic data for that particular area. We added the link to the Create Report feature here on this page primarily for the Americans with Disabilities Act reasons. If you are visually impaired and you're trying to use Census Business Builder, navigating a map where you have to click on the map would be very challenging. So now we have direct access to the report. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the map. And what the application is now doing is it's now zooming me to Fairfax County. It automatically opens our map variables dashboard menu. I'm going to close it right now just so we can sort of see the map a little bit. So on the map, we have a number of features. Across the very top of the application, we have this menu bar. This is where I can go in and change the industry, the geography, the map variable, or the filter variable that has been applied to the map to see what I'm looking at right now. So let's say I'm interested in opening my restaurant in Fairfax County, Virginia, and I change my mind. You know what? I do the research. It's saturated. I don't want to open a Greek restaurant. Let's open a restaurant in Portland, Multnomah County. I'm going to go across the country, drag my wife along. She's not very happy about that, but tough. So we could change the geography to Multnomah, and it would immediately zoom across the country. I could say, you know, I really want to stay in Fairfax County, but I'd rather change my industry. I now want to open a daycare center, or I want to research a daycare center. I could change the daycare center here. So we have the ability to change all of those attributes right here at the top. In the upper left-hand corner, we have the normal zoom in, zoom out buttons. I commented before about how fast CBB is. You saw how fast it built the map. If I zoom back in again, you can see in that amount of time, it's literally grabbing all the data for this map from our API, presenting it on the map, and pushing it out to the screen. So that's what happens with cloud. Just to the right of, so you have the normal zoom in, zoom out. Panning and zooming is also totally possible in Census Business Builder. I can now move the map around, and every time I move the map, it's literally making those API calls to grab the data on the fly. The tool does support data at the state, county, city, zip code, and census tract levels. You do notice that the word tract is currently grayed out. I jokingly call this the Andy-proof feature. This tool prevents you from trying to download too many geographies where it crashes our server. So in order to be able to look at the tract level data, I'd have to zoom in on the map first. They call it the Andy-proof because I actually crashed our API server when we first started working on this tool. It was a bad day. I tried to look at the entire New York metropolitan area at the county level, and in one click, I went to tract and I crashed the server because it tried to download about 40,000 tracts all in about a second and a half. That was bad. We don't do that again. Upper right-hand corner, we have a map download button. This allows you to download all the data that's on the map. So if you've gone in and actually done some research and are looking at these statistics and you now want to download all that data, you can go ahead and click on the download map data button. And right below there, we have a transparency slider that lets you hide the data layer so you can see the base map better. This is really popular when people want to see what is the boundaries of a geography, and I want to be able to look at the base map. I want to be able to zoom in and say, oh, okay, Crofton, Maryland's boundaries are this road and this river that make up the boundary, so you can hide that. Bottom left-hand corner, we have this data dashboard. The data dashboard shows us the statistic that we've clicked on, in this case, total population in Fairfax County. Clicking around on the map, the dashboard automatically refreshes. Just to the just to the right of the population number, we have a time series comparison. How is the population in Fairfax, or in this case, Arlington County, changing? You can see it's increasing. Just to the right of there is a geohierarchy chart. This allows us to compare the county to the state and to the nation. We only have that comparison available in places where it makes sense. Total population would be really hard to show because the US bar would be so gigantic you'd never be able to see the county bar. And you'll see that in just a second. And just to the right of there, we have 4 additional statistics, all that can be completely customized in Census Business Builder. So if you wanted to look at more than just that one statistic on the map, you could then go ahead and look at these additional ones. Finally, to the right of there, we have the normal legend. All of these panels can be minimized or can be brought back. Let me zoom out a little bit more. Or I can bring them back by clicking on the button. Okay, so that's sort of the overview of the features of Census Business Builder on the map itself. Let's talk a little bit about the data that's available in Census Business Builder. The statistics are grouped into 3 broad categories. We have data about my potential customers. These are all of our demographic and socioeconomic types of data. Things like demographic characteristics like population broken out by age, by race and ethnicity. So if I wanted to open my Greek restaurant and I wanted to cater to a particular type of demographic audience, I could go ahead and find that data that way. We have socioeconomic data like household income, educational attainment, labor force status, disability status, healthcare coverage, etc. When this tool first went live, we had 4 statistics from the American Community Survey. There's now about 40 from ACS and 84 in total. Most of the ones that we added because users asked for them. For example, this last one here at the bottom, percent speaking Spanish at home, was specifically added because people said, if I'm opening a business and I want to be able to, and I think the customers of my business are going to speak Spanish at home, maybe I ought to know that so I know what kind of staff I ought to hire. Okay, so we have those types of statistics. And finally, we have housing data, number of housing units, house values, rents, median year structure built. Again, these were all statistics that were added based upon different types of user use cases. As you play with this application yourself and you find statistics that you think we ought to add, please, please, please click on the Send Feedback button in the upper right-hand corner. We've received over 800 pieces of feedback since this application first went live. We really listen. About 3 weeks ago, we actually did a demonstration of this for the National Beer Wholesalers Association, talking about a great organization to work for. They actually have a bar in their business office, which is just awesome. I'm a beer enjoyer. They were interested in looking at the business data for beer wholesalers. When they were looking at our data, the demographic data, they realized that we had a breakout of population for under 5, under 18, over 18, and over 65, but none of them helped them. You were shaking your head, no, what's wrong with you? They said, we need 21 and over, drinking age. So 2 weeks later, we added drinking age, 21 and over, and they gave us a big hug because we actually listened to them and we added the statistics that they're interested in. We also have business data. The Census Bureau actually tabulates data for businesses in 2 broad categories, what we call employer businesses. These are the normal types of businesses that have paid employees, but we also have non-employers. These are independent contractors, sole proprietors. If you are researching opening a daycare center and you ignored the non-employers, you are literally missing every single home-based daycare center in your community. Okay, all of them, well, I shouldn't say all, nearly every home-based daycare center files a Schedule C or a Schedule SE with the IRS. They are not employer businesses, even though they may actually have employees. If you get a 1099, you are not an employee. You are an independent contractor. So we have data on both employers and non-employers that includes number of businesses, employment, payroll, and sales. Same thing on the non-employer side. The key ratios is what I sort of think of as the most interesting, because this takes a couple of our business statistics and creates a ratio of them. So for example, if I was opening a restaurant and I wanted to compare how much do I have to pay my employees in Fairfax County versus Arlington County versus Loudoun County, let's say, I could look at the payroll per employee data, and it would actually tell me that, okay, if you're going to open a restaurant in Arlington County, you got to pay your employees around $20,800. That's the average annual payroll per employee. But in the District of Columbia, it's $24,752. Okay, these key ratios over here include things like revenue per employee. Yes, I have to pay my employees more in the District of Columbia, but do they generate more revenue for my business? In the District of Columbia, it's $59,054. So for every employee, that's about how much they generate. But over here, in the city of Alexandria, it's $62,000. So maybe that's a better place to open my restaurant. My employees are more productive, if you want to say that. We also have a statistic that I absolutely love: revenue per dollar of payroll. For every dollar that I pay my employees, how many dollars did they generate for my business of revenue? So you can see in Alexandria, they generate $3.14. Over here in Fairfax County, it's $3.32. So again, sort of helping this business person understand the makeup of their organization, of their area. We also have consumer spending data. These are those statistics that I mentioned that we purchased from Esri, spending, how much people spend on dining out, how much they spend on entertainment and recreation, et cetera. One little point I'll make now, I'll reiterate it again at the end, is that we've been thinking about other data we want to add to Census Business Builder. In fact, in our next release in June, we're going to be adding agriculture data from USDA. We're going to be adding some of our international trade data, total imports and total exports from our foreign trade programs that we conduct at Census. And we're actually going to be adding the feature for allowing users to bring in their own data. So if you have statistics that you'd like to be able to overlay on top of the Census Bureau data, that June release will allow you to be able to do that. That feature is going to completely expand the usability of Census Business Builder, because it will allow local areas to bring in their own very interesting statistics. One thing that Census Business Builder does not do is all of our statistics at Census, with very few exceptions, are subject to Title 13 and Title 26 regulations, which basically means that we can't publish data that discloses the identity of individuals or individual companies. So that means that when you're looking at our business data, for example, on number of businesses, we can tell you that in Fairfax County there are 752 restaurants, but we cannot show you points on a map where each of those restaurants are located. We can't tell you their names. Okay? These are all prohibitions under Title 13. It's disclosing the identity of an individual company, individual business. However, there are plenty of other data providers that don't have those privacy protections. Think about Google, Bing, Yelp, that have the ability to be able to show point level data. In being able to bring in your own data and overlay that Yelp data on top of our map, you could actually show those points on the map of where those businesses are actually located, with one massive giant caveat, and that is the quality of the data may vary widely. Please, please, please don't call me when Yelp says there's 20 restaurants in Crofton and we said there's 37, okay? When you bring in your own data, you're on your own. That's what we're sort of going to have in the tool. So we have our business data. I'm going to go back over to the demographic data just to kind of give you some example of what else is available in terms of the geography. So again, we're looking at a county level map, and as again, you can see we've changed it to percent 18 and over, so now you can see our two charts are now available. If I now wanted to drill and look at the zip codes in this area to be able to dive into the demographics even further, by clicking on zip codes, that's every zip code on this map. Now imagine now I've done all this work, I can now download all that zip code level data by clicking on this. People really love this. Zooming in on the map, I now can finally be able to go in and look at the tracks. Of course, this is called death by demo. This is when it kind of gets cranky on you. If I kept zooming in, it would allow me to go in and actually select tracks. I'm not going to do it. Okay, we're running out of time. So, last couple of features I quickly want to show you is the filter. So in this tool, we've been looking at one statistic at a time. Let's say I wanted to find all the geographies, all the zip codes that meet certain criteria. I want to use this for my marketing plan of my business. I want to find all the specific zip codes that I want to do a mailing to encourage people to come to my Greek restaurant. So I can go into the filter, and I can add a new filter. And let's say I want to find where are all the wealthy people, the people who have high median household income. I can select household income, and I now get a range from low to high of what the range of household incomes are in this area in terms of median household income. If I want to find all the high income counties or zip codes, I can drag that slider bar up, and when I click apply filter, only those geographies that actually cover my data are then shown. Let me go ahead and just do this real quick here. So the map is now rendering, and it's actually going to show just those geographies that meet my criteria. You can see all the ones that don't qualify are now grayed out. I can add up to 3 filters at the same time. So if I wanted to find high income, high percentage 65 and over, and high disability status, let's say I want to cater specifically to people who are disabled in my Greek restaurant, I could go in and filter the data that way. Okay? This allows me to do the focused marketing for my business. We showed this feature to a real estate group, and they just passed out because they were like, now I can use this to help focus my marketing efforts for my real estate business. If I want to focus on townhomes of a certain value, if that's my sort of target customers for my business, I could go in and actually filter that data that way. I'm going to go back out to county level data just to show you the last feature of the Small Business Edition, and that is the actual report. After I've done all of my research, and I've now determined that opening my restaurant in Fairfax County is a good idea, I can now go ahead and create a report that actually includes all of the data that we were just looking at for Fairfax County, that I can now download this report. I can print it off. I can give it to my lender to say, see, I did my homework. Opening a restaurant in Fairfax County is a good idea. We have all of our demographic data. We have our socioeconomic and our housing data. We have some business data. And then finally down here at the bottom, we have our consumer spending data. These reports are all fully manipulable. So let's say right now we're looking at percent 18 and over. If I wanted to look at the 21 and overs, I can click on that, and both charts now automatically repaint. These reports can all be downloaded by clicking on the download data button, and this is where you would actually go to print this report off. You would download it as a PDF and then print the PDF. Okay. If you can imagine how hard it is to print from a website, that's why we did it this way. Bring it down as a PDF and then print the PDF. You'll also notice that the report actually opened in its own browser window. This would allow me to go in and run a report for Fairfax County, and now I can click on Fairfax City and run another report. I can just keep adding as many of those reports as I want. You might have also noticed that this URL in Census Business Builder keeps changing as I'm using the application. If I've done all this fabulous research and I now want to share this with a friend or a colleague, I can copy that URL and I can email them the URL. And when they go back to that same URL, they'll come right back into the tool exactly where I left, exactly where that URL was as of. So it's a great way to sort of save and share the information that you've done. Okay. With the amount of time, I have a few minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and just quickly show you all the Regional Analyst Edition to show you the main difference on the Regional Analyst Edition. So let me zoom out a little bit here. So let's go back to census.gov, and I'm going to go to Data, Data Tools and Apps, and Census Business Builder. And this time, we're going to go to the Regional Analyst Edition. And you'll notice right away the first level menu, this splash screen, looks a little different. We don't actually have the ability to choose our industry in the Regional Analyst Edition because, again, this tool is presenting data for all types of businesses in this area. So I'm going to stick with my example before about Southern Maryland, and we're going to go to Calvert County. So I typed in Calvert, and here's our Calvert County. And when the application zooms in on Calvert County, it's going to look very similar to how it looked before in terms of in the Small Business Edition. But now you notice there's this new box over here on the left. This is where we go in and actually create our region. So if I now wanted to create the 3-county area that we typically think of as Southern Maryland, I could click on Edit Region, click on each of the counties that make up my region, and add them to my region. I can then name that region. So let's just call this Southern Maryland, if I can type. And when I'm done editing, it now outlines that 3-county area. The application allows you to build a region either by counties or by cities. So if I wanted to create the Memphis Area Chamber of Commerce, I could click on the city of Memphis and each of the 6 cities that surround Memphis and actually create a profile of that 7-city area. Again, thinking about sort of chambers of commerce and other regional planning authorities, they don't care about specific counties, they care about their service area. As before, I could go in now and drill down to the cities and zip code and tract level data, but the big thing I can now do is I can now create not only a report specifically for St. Mary's County, but I can now create this region report that now takes all of the demographic, socioeconomic, housing, and business data for those 3 counties and retabulates and reaggregates it into a total. So here's our 3 counties we just selected. And here in that 3-county area, we have the total population in that 3-county area. We have a breakout of the race and ethnicity, age, and all of the same type of data as we had before. The application allows you to build a region with up to 24 pieces. 24 counties, 24 cities. You're probably wondering, why did we come up with 24? That is because one of our favorite browsers, Internet Explorer, actually has a limit on how long the URL can be. And that limit then limits how many geographies I can add. I could build one with 30, but I then couldn't go back and actually bookmark this URL and send it to somebody. It would have truncated off anything after the 24th geography. So essentially, these are our 2 Census Business Builder applications. Again, we talked a little bit about sort of next steps. We're going to be adding more features, more functionality, more content in the next release. And we're really constantly looking for feedback from people of, what do you think of this? Is this useful? Is this something that I can actually use with my customers to help promote Census Bureau, Commerce Department data? I made the point earlier that this tool not only merges data from Census Bureau, but with third-party data. In that update that we're doing in June, where we're adding data from USDA, we are now pulling open data across federal statistical agencies from USDA. We need to sort of get out of this mindset of thinking only of our own individual programs within Census and our own individual bureaus, because to users, we are one Census Bureau. We are one federal government. They want data for their area, and they need that data from across multiple programs at Census, multiple geographies, multiple industries, multiple areas across the federal statistical community. So with that, let me get back out to our PowerPoint. And I'm going to go ahead and just quickly finish where we were. Let me get back to the full screen size. Hopefully we'll see there in a second. Oops. Okay, there we go. So in the PowerPoint, we had some screenshots. When the PowerPoint gets sent out to you all will be able to see that. So what is the future for data dissemination, for having these filtered data tools available to all types of users? The Census Bureau is currently working on a brand new data dissemination platform that will do a lot of what Census Business Builder has done and more. So we are trying to create one sort of common interface for people to be able to go in. There's actually a preview out there right now. That URL actually does work. If you go to data.census.gov, you'll actually be able to go in and see what we've done so far in this new platform. And it's just the beginning. We are really trying to make accessing our data easier to not just power users and not just those entry-level users, but to the people in between. So with that, I am done. Does anybody here in the room have any questions?
Anyone in the room? Well, I have a few from the online audience that can get the ball rolling. Here's an easy one to start. Is the ISP based on NAICS codes? How would they get data based on the NAPCS?
So yes, ISP's primary dimension is NAICS. The tool is primarily built on the latest vintage, on the 2012 vintage of NAICS, but we have built in that comparability information. So for industries that have changed over time, NAICS gets updated every 5 years. So we do actually have information on the old 2007 and even the 2002 and back to 1997 NAICS codes. They're all sort of accessible in there. The product-based data that's available from NAPS, the North American Product Classification System, is accessible in in the ISP, because those product statistics are associated with a specific industry. So you can get to the product line data, for example, for grocery stores by choosing grocery stores, and the product data is then accessible. So.
Okay, great. The source of the total consumer spending, is that?
So in debating where we wanted to go to get consumer spending data, we were presented with sort of two options. The Census Bureau actually conducts a survey for the Bureau of Labor Statistics that does publish data on consumer expenditures, and ESRI also compiles their own data as well using credit card receipts. Okay? In debating which one we wanted to use, we decided to go with the ESRI data for a couple of reasons. First, as a proof of concept of what it means to merge together federal government data and third-party data, we thought that this was a good sign of things for us to be doing. You noticed before when we were looking at the consumer spending data that it's actually per capita consumer spending. We took the ESRI actual dollars and used our population numbers to come up with those per capita calculations. So we've literally mashed together American Community Survey population data and the ESRI spending data. The big reason, though, is because the way ESRI actually tabulates their data is based upon the address of the credit card where the money was spent, not the household where that credit card is based. So the Consumer Expenditure Survey is a household-based survey, so it's asking people how much they spend on different things, and the data are tabulated based upon where they live, where the credit card bill comes to. So if I go out to a restaurant in D.C., that gets counted as if I spent that money in Crofton, Maryland, where I actually live. The ESRI data is actually compiled based upon where the money is spent, because again, it's credit card data. So that's why we decided to use that. We do know that we're going to want to sort of investigate this further, and we may actually switch over to the BLS data for a couple of reasons. But again, it's sort of pushing this envelope of what it means to be user-friendly and to present statistics across agencies.
Okay, great. Anyone in the room? I've got plenty more online. If not, Hillary, do you have a question? Kelly's got a mic for you.
Hi, I was in your example with the Greek restaurants.
Right.
I was wondering if the data would show actually where the Greek restaurants are. Does it go that far? Because I know you said you had restaurants per zip code, but I'm just looking at it industry level from aggregate, and how far down can you go?
So in the tool, the primary dimension, those industry definitions, the industries themselves are NAICS codes. So there is a single 6-digit NAICS code for restaurants, but we actually do have detailed data that break that restaurant number out into the type of restaurant that it is. We actually have Italian and seafood and Greek and et cetera, et cetera. In building Census Business Builder, we were very conscious of putting enough data in this tool to make it useful and not so much that you're like standing in front of the fire hydrant. So striking that balance, figuring out what is that happy medium between just enough data and not too much, was something that we've been struggling with, and we actually decided to not put that data broken out by the type of restaurant. You could actually get to it by clicking on that restaurants link that we had on the splash page that brings you to the definition, because on that page it actually has the breakout of the different types of restaurants based upon the menu type. So again, this is sort of this concept of a little bit of data. This is the 16-ounce glass of data, not the pitcher and not the fire hydrant either. So striking that happy balance. Yeah, great question.
Great. Given that the underlying data, the demo and econ data from each of the surveys is released for different time periods, how much of a lag do you typically have in the data shown through this tool?
So right now in Census Business Builder, you didn't really see it because I went so fast through it. The vintage of the data does vary somewhat. The American Community Survey data is actually as of 2015. The annual data is as of 2015. Most of our business data is as of 2014, and there are a little bit of business data at the city level and zip code that are actually from the 2012 economic census. We're trying to always put the latest data that is available, and yes, that does create a situation where now you're comparing 2015 population to 2014 business counts, but it is the latest that we have. We're always updating it to include the latest data. So for example, the 2015 business data is coming out in April and May of this year, and it'll immediately be updated. But there typically is a lag of one full cycle from when the vintage of the data is and when it actually comes out. So for example, the 2015 business data measures the calendar year January 1st to December 31st, 2015. We didn't start collecting that data until the beginning of 2016, and we don't actually publish it into the end of 2016 or the middle of 2017. So there's a full period lag, a 1 year, if you will, to a year and a half lag. The same is also true on our monthly data, the quarterly data. Again, it's one period lag. So for example, I just mentioned earlier that we just released the January trade data yesterday. It's January, even though it's now March, because we had a 1 month lag.
Okay, super. Anyone else in the room yet?
Any other questions?
I've got more. Don't worry.
Okay, cool.
So because you're pulling the data from the USDA, does this mean that there will be agricultural type business data available?
Okay, so figuring out exactly what data from USDA we're going to pull is actually a conversation I'm hoping to have on Friday with my colleagues from USDA. Super. At the very least, we're going to include the same type of business data from USDA as we have from the Census Bureau. So numbers of businesses, employment, payroll, and sales or revenue of a farm. Those will all be available at the individual detailed 2 through 6-digit NAICS code levels, which are available in Census Business Builder. So if you wanted to find poultry farmers, you would have that data available in Census Business Builder because that is their own NAICS code. The challenge is going to be, do we want to provide more than just that? Do we want to provide a link to the USDA website to learn more? Or do we want to put some more of the USDA data? An example on our trade data, we actually publish data by country of destination or country of origin. So when we add the total imports and total exports data, we can tell you what are the exports of automobile manufacturers from Alabama, but knowing which country they're going to, that data are also available. We might want to add that in the future. So again, striking that balance between just enough and yet not too much.
In a related where is the data coming from question, is IRS data included? And if not, can it be? Okay,
so by its very definition, all of the non-employer data that we publish at the Census Bureau is actually coming from the IRS. The Census Bureau does not actually conduct a survey of non-employer, of self-employed, independent contractors, et cetera. The data all come from the IRS. We then tabulate and aggregate that data by geography and by industry. So by definition, the IRS data are included in Census Business Builder. We've just scratched the surface of the data that the IRS publishes. We may want to add more data, but again, sort of striking that happy balance between just enough and yet not too much. That's what we're sort of working on.
Mixing census source and survey sourced data, where are the error measures, or what are the error measures? I think
so right now, all the margins of error are available in the reports. I didn't actually show you how to do it, but across the very top of the report, there's a couple of buttons. I showed you where you click on the download data button. Just to the left of there was a button for show margins of error. The application does allow you to turn them on. They are turned off by default. You could turn them on if you wanted to see them. Right now, the margins of error are only displayed in the report, but in June we are going to be adding the ability to view the margins of error in the map itself. We also have links in the map and in the report to all the methodology type information. So if people wanted to find out exactly how we collect this data, what are the sort of methodologies behind how we do all this work and stuff like that, there are links to those methodology statements available inside Census Business Builder. We have made it sort of a conscious effort, if you will, to hide some of that information, not per se, to just put it there where it's as available as a link, because to be quite frank, most users of these two editions of Census Business Builder, quite frankly, don't care.
Okay.
Now, we might say we want them to care, we want them to use the margins of error, we want them to make informed, smart decisions with our data, but we're giving them the ability to be able to view that information rather than sort of cramming it down their throats.
Okay.
Okay, so we have an audience question.
Yes. Do you have any workshops on site to get a hands-on on this data and on these data tools? Because that's where I learn the most.
So, yes, we do. We are always available. You can sort of tell that I don't mind talking. I'm Greek, so I talk with my hands. This gets out of control. So if you'd like us to do a specific workshop for you, we'd be more than happy to do that. I do have some business cards I can give you at the end. You can just email me. Or again, my email address is here on the slide. I'm the only andrew.w.hait at the Census Bureau. So yes, we definitely do that. One of the advantages, of course, of us being here is travel is not a problem. So coming here and doing a workshop, in fact, Chris Heflin, who was here earlier, she left, actually has me coming back in a couple of weeks to do another workshop for her office.
Super. I have a quick follow-up to the IRS question, one more, and then anyone else in the in-person? All right, then we'll wrap it up after that. Is the IRS data annual with no vintage as mentioned?
Okay, so say that again.
Is the IRS data that's included annual?
Yes.
Okay.
So the period of the IRS data is exactly the same as our employer data. So we have IRS non-employer from 2014, and we have Census Bureau employer data from 2014. Super. We do have a couple of those key ratios where we mash those two numbers together. So for example, if you were looking at daycare centers, you could look at the number of employer daycare centers, and you could look at the number of non-employer daycare centers, but we do take those two numbers and add them together into one total. So we're actually adding the IRS and the Census Bureau data together into a total. Because again, to the person who's opening a daycare center, they don't care whether or not they're competing with KinderCare or Andy and Sue Hait running a daycare center in their basement. They want to understand the total composition of all the daycare centers in their community and how well or poorly the kids in those communities are being served by the businesses that are already there.
Great. All right, then final question. BEA produces data with a custom geography, combining counties like Fairfax County plus Fairfax City plus Falls Church City. Many users would like to have BEA's regional economic data together with census data. Any plans to enable the BEA geography for these?
So the regional analysis edition can build those same regions.
Right.
So you certainly could do that. In the features that we're going to be adding in June, I mentioned that we're going to allow people to bring in data from other sources. If the BEA data are being delivered in an API, and we're actually in conversations with BEA right now to talk with them about that, then absolutely we could overlay the BEA data. One feature that people have asked us to add is the ability to overlay their own shape files. So let's say I've already built a 9-county region with my data, and I want to be able to overlay that pre-built shape on top of Census Business Builder and let Census Business Builder use my shapes, my combination geographies to build that profile. You will, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, you will be able to do that in the June release with a couple of caveats. Obviously, the vintage of the geography has to be consistent. If the definition of Fairfax County that we have and the definition for Fairfax County that somebody else has, if the boundaries are different, that's going to be a mess. And yes, geography boundaries do change over time. My colleague Jeff Sisson knows about some of the hassles that we go through at Census of dealing with geography change because it affects comparability of the data across time and across programs. Mashing up data when the geography is not consistent is really hard. It's a mess.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thanks everyone
welcome.
for attending.
Thank you all so much for being here.
And we'll see you next time.